It's going to be very difficult for Shaun Micallefs to be able to send this up.
Wiki wiki wah, wiki 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 wah wah wah, wiki 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 wah wah wah. Wiki wah. Thank you. Well, it's official. According to this week's news poll, for the first time in 2 years, Anthony Albanese has drawn level with Scott Morrison on 42% as preferred Prime Minister, which means we don't have a preferred Prime Minister. We're obviously looking for a government to be run by some sort of co-op. And interestingly, 16% registered as uncommitted. So both parties will, I'm sure, be looking to get those people committed. Although I'm not sure if they're allowed to vote if that happens. The big question, though, is how did it come to this? Big question I'd like to answer with a little bit of plain speaking. OK, so there's this guy, right? I don't want to say who it is. Doesn't matter who it is. Could be you or I, so relatable is he. Anyway, he was sick with COVID a couple of weeks back and he couldn't control the narrative and gaslight us as much as he usually does. So two of his friends, very close friends, so close in fact they often hold hands with each other, tried to win us over in the hope that they could get his job in a leadership spill. Now, one of the men, doesn't matter which one, tried to frighten us into liking him by pointing at China and saying, "Boogie, boogie." And the other, shorter one, tried to get us to like him by pointing out our economic recovery and saying something about wage growth. I'm sorry, I always drift off when he starts talking. Anyway, the man who was off sick saw what his friends were up to, probably on social media, because he's never off it. And he thought, and I'm paraphrasing here, fuck this shit, I'm going to announce that we're spending $38 billion on a submarine base. That'll make me look as though I'm in charge of the economy and national security and not them. Now, unfortunately, on the day of the announcement, one of the proposed sites for the submarine base, Brisbane, was underwater, so the whole thing was in bad taste. But he made the announcement anyway, eventually getting around to declaring a national emergency because of the floods a week later, although he excluded Queensland. And you know something? That man was the Prime Minister, Scott Morrison. And unfortunately for the PM... Oh, yes, please, let's applaud. We should applaud the Prime Minister. Although, unfortunately for the PM, no matter what he does these days, he can't seem to win. He bans journalists when he goes up there to visit because...
In disasters like this, not everybody wants a camera shoved in their face.
Then he lets cameras get shoved into his face so they can photograph him pretending to help clean up, and they make fun of him on a show like this. I mean, look at that ScoMop. It's disgraceful. It's not just that. Or they say, oh, sure, not everyone wants a camera shoved in their face during a disaster, but apparently they do want a hand shoved in their hand. Well, no more. Tonight, we are treating the PM with the dignity his office deserves, and not just someone obsessed with promoting some image. The fact of the matter is the PM spent a lot of time visiting flood-affected areas with his hands behind his back, just in case someone refused to shake them. That's smart thinking. And while he wasn't apologising for anything, at least he was using the word apologise.
I do apologise that the amount of support that has been provided and continues to be provided, I still don't believe will always meet the expectations that are just at, very high levels.
Yes, levels that are only seen once every 500 years. So the problem is not a slow response, it's that people have been expecting too much, which, when you look at the government's record in crisis management, he's got a point. A point that he went on to sharpen.
I don't think any amount of support was ever going to be enough.
Yes, this is can't-do capitalism. Trey Mellor-Bird from the PMO, no, not again. Some have criticised the federal government's response as inadequate, but the PM's got nothing to apologise for, has he?
Shaun, if you're looking for inadequate responses, you only have to look at the one Scott gave about whether he should apologise.
Every federal government would always be apologetic.
See? It's not just the fault of the state governments. He's spreading the blame across past, future and, for that matter, purely hypothetical governments.
Can I ask about links between this flood and climate change?
Shaun, Scott has already avoided this question very comprehensively.
I mean, we are dealing with a different climate to the one we were dealing with before. I think that's just an obvious fact.
I mean, it's obvious. It goes without saying.
Is that why he didn't actually say anything?
Look, all we know is the climate is different, and it's impossible to say if it's the old one that has changed or a totally new one that's come along and replaced it by some other process. That's not for him to say or not say.
So it's like how you might not believe in a change of government, but we will definitely have a different one after the election.
Well, that's just an obvious fact. And it's also obvious that we can't react to this flood in the ways we would have other crises.
In what way?
Well, backgrounding against the flood, trying to wedge the floods in Western Sydney by introducing a religious discrimination bill, having Jenny say she found the floods a bit disappointing because there is such a thing as manners and respect. You know, the usual.
I'm talking to Dramella Burt. Now, Dramella, when the PM says...
I absolutely understand the frustration. I understand the anger. I understand the disappointment.
Does he also understand that the frustration, anger and disappointment is directed at him as leader of the country?
Shaun, Scott understands in the same way he understood those Canberra anti-vax protesters but said that they should blame the state premiers.
Why not dip into more of that $4 billion emergency response fund?
Shaun, that's the Emergency Management Minister Bridget Mackenzie's department. You should ask her pretend spokesperson.
All right, I will.
Shaun, it's like Bridget reckons. We know the climate change over the coming decades will make these events more intense, and that's exactly what this fund is for.
Yeah, but won't kicking the climate change can down the road only ensure things will always be progressively worse in the future?
Of course. And this fund will generate more and more money to support those disasters.
Which you also won't spend.
The LNP have always been superior economic managers, Shaun. The less we spend on climate, the more we ensure we also never spend on disaster relief. You've got to save money to save money.
All right, well, Bridget accompanied the PM on his trip to Brisbane last week, where she watched him shake hands with various people, compare the cleaning action of various brooms, and also ape his hand gestures, as you can see there. She later stood firmly behind and unnervingly close to the PM as he deflected blame for the tardiness of his response. What do you think Bridget's thinking there, right there?
I think she was petrified he'd throw her under the bus and blame her for everything like he did with the sports rorts.
So tell me, Megan, why did it take so long to declare a national emergency?
Well, as Bridget said, Shaun.
Well, this is the first time we've actually had these powers enacted at a federal level.
What, and you don't know how to use them yet? Did they not come with instructions?
If you'd let Bridget finish, Shaun.
Oh, sorry.
There's actually a threshold trigger for calling a national disaster, and, you know, if a national, like if there was a nuclear attack, that would be an immediate response, whereas there was no single event through the course of that week that would trigger the threshold in the legislation for us to be able to do that.
It's not exactly a hair trigger, is it, if it takes a nuclear bomb to set it off?
It compounds, Shaun. One droplet of rainwater is obviously not enough to pull the threshold trigger, but several $100 billion will prompt the states, in consultation with the federal government, to write a letter to the PM, and then Emergency Management Australia will advise Bridget as Minister for Emergency Management and National Recovery and Resilience, and then the threshold trigger is eventually squeezed. And then, as Bridget says...
Well, it triggers the fact that we, as a federal government, can reduce red tape.
Would there be any red tape left to reduce at that point?
Not really, no, but that makes it very easy to reduce.
Well, ultimately, though, it seems to all depend on the advice Bridget receives from Emergency Management Australia.
Yes, it's all their fault.
All right. And who runs that?
The Minister for Home Affairs, Karen Andrews.
Can I speak to her spokesperson, please?
Yes, you can. I'll put you through.
Thank you.
One moment, please. Your call is very important to us. It's ringing.
OK.
We apologise for the delay, but all our staff are busy at the moment, and we recommend you contact the state premiers.
Thank you very much, Dramella.
Thank you.
All right. And also thank you very much, Megan St John. Well, coming up, lab-grown meat. How tasty is it? And UN Security Council carpet really needs a good shampoo. Disgusting. But right now, Amanda's Health senior political correspondent Lois Price is high in the sky and joins us now. Lois, you flew the Prime Minister around the flood-affected areas last week, as I understand it.
The greatest honour of my life, Shaun, along with being chosen as the Kahuna Farmers Weekly's junior queen of the Mallee. He's so different in real life to how he seems on the tally.
Well, I must say, he always looks very rugged and macho in a chopper.
Yeah, very different in real life.
There's been some discussion, Lois, about the appropriateness of using ADF personnel in these situations. What are your thoughts?
I like it, Shaun. In fact, if you ask me, which you did, I think there are many other ways the government can deploy the ADF to help, like managing the sandwich bars in our CBDs that closed down after COVID, or picking fruit on farms, or standing in a New South Wales seat for the coalition in the election.
And given we're already carrying a debt of about $1 trillion, what about the government's decision to spend another $38 billion expanding the ADF?
Yeah, I think they've been surprised by Labor's popularity in the polls, Shaun, so they're trying to make themselves look more like Labor by indiscriminately spending shitloads of money. Car tyres rooted. It's time to retire at Pablo's Tyre Palace. This week, every tyre in the shop is slashed after Pablo had a bit of an episode with a Stanley knife. Bridgestone, Michelin, Pirelli, you name it, they're all in ribbons. This month only, buy 13 tyres and get the 9th one half price. I'm Lois Price for Manners Health.
Thanks, Lois. Thank you.
Thanks, Shaun.
Well, we alluded to Josh Frydenberg earlier, and as the Treasurer prepares for what will be his last federal budget before the election, the excitement is palpable. And who can blame him, with reports that higher interest rates and higher debt run-up dealing with the coronavirus are on track to push the federal budget interest bill towards $30 billion a year, eclipsing even the cost of aged care services. Former government finance spokesperson Darius Horsham, that's a lot of money. How does Josh make it go away?
Richard Colbeck is doing his best, Shaun.
No, not aged care services, the interest on the national debt.
Shaun, you are forgetting the #1 rule of LNP superior economic management.
Don't shit on my leg and tell me it's a brown kitten?
No, that is number 2's. Number 1 is that the only interest on debt anyone needs to pay any attention to is the interest the coalition will take and how bad that is once Labor are in charge.
Yes, but these interest payments are only going to increase as the interest rates go up.
Which is why it is so important for the government to pay back the Labor debt as soon as possible.
Yeah, but this debt is incurred under the coalition government.
Yes, but in a very Labor way, Shaun. What with all this spending on the poor and the needy and the boo-hoo, I want to go to the bedroom, people. We are all in the bedroom.
But why repay the debt at all? A small debt has, say, you or I worried, but a large debt has the lender worried. Why not let the debt grow, then when it gets too big and the lenders come a knocking, transfer the government of Australia into a relative's name in an offshore account, and then phoenix the country of Australia under the new ownership of Anthony Albanese?
Oh, Shaun, don't sneeze on my hair and tell me it's a new range of Garnier Fructus conditioner. What you am proposing will never work. The point of phoenixing a company is that the same people who ran the company before are meant to run it afterwards. And the Scott Morrison and Anthony Albanese aren't exactly the same person, are they?
I don't know, give Albo a couple more weeks.
Fantastic.
All right, thank you very much, Darius Horsham. Now, it's not just the PM who was coming for criticism this last week. The Deputy Prime Minister, Barnaby Joyce, has come in for some stick, claiming the floods were a 1 in 3,500-year event, without at least quoting the chapter and verse from the Book of Genesis where that figure appears. Although, to be fair to Barnaby, the Bureau of Meteorology have been no help at all. Their records don't go back anywhere near that far. They're completely useless. I mean, when's the last time they accurately predicted a meteor? In my view, they should be closed down and the money donated to Barnaby's re-election campaign. Who's with me? Now, as well as the standard of Barnaby's Bible studies, there is dissatisfaction with his lack of understanding about Russian oil imports, his likening of Australia to Russia in the Ukraine conflict, his disapproval among women, and his writing off of the PM even before turning up in Lismore and doing it himself. Man from the pub who gives Barnaby his ideas, Mick Nobone. Maybe you should stop and let Barnaby come up with a few of his own ideas.
You can blame Bumblebee for many things, Shaun. But you can't blame him for the floods. He hasn't been Minister for Water since 2017. This is a natural disaster. So if people are going to blame anyone, they should be blaming Mother Nature. Women, eh?
Is it a natural disaster? The LNP do seem keen to distance the floods from its climate inaction, just as they did after the bushfires.
Well, which is it we're causing? Fire or its opposite, water? Make up your bloody minds.
I guess the main criticism is that the ADF weren't involved early enough in the flood recovery. There should have been more uniforms on the ground.
Well, it's funny you should mention that. I said to Carbuncle, I said, why don't you just send a whole bunch of actual ADF uniforms to the flood-affected areas straight away? Then get the people up there who are actually helping with the clean-up to dress up in them while they did that essential work. That way, the community would have seen people in ADF uniforms helping from day one, which would have provided that sense that the government cared about them. The actual ADF could rock up a few days later and focus on their core function of filming promotional videos of themselves, unloading and then reloading trailers full of debris.
Yes, I suppose that's right. Plus, dressing up civilians in uniform would be one way for the ADF to get anywhere close to their target of an extra 18,500 new personnel thereafter.
Oh, now you're thinking like Barnum Bleak.
Well, thank you very much, Mick. Mick Nobone.
Well, I haven't finished yet.
Now, there's no doubt our defence resources are overstretched. I mean, look at this recovery vehicle having to urgently leave the flood front line to sit in the background during the PM's press conference to make it look more imposing. But what will this $38 billion Defence Force expansion, the biggest since the Vietnam War, always the reassuring gold standard when it comes to military excellence, mean in real terms, Vice-Rear Cabin Boy Sir Bobo Gargle?
Well, I'll have more junior officers under me, Shaun, and that can only be a good thing.
Now, PM's used this announcement to put the boot into the opposition, claiming
Defence would have received $55 billion less if the coalition had maintained funding at the settings it inherited from Labor.
That's a yawning gap.
Now, to put both the yawning and the gap into perspective, $55 billion could have bought us the French submarines the LNP government initially bought in 2016, or half of those same submarines a few years later. Or we could have taken the $2.4 billion already spent on the submarines that never got built and scrapped them 20 times over. Or, if you really wanted to splurge, we could have blown it on roughly a third of the estimated $171 billion that the new AUKUS submarines may end up costing us.
Look, I don't want to politicise the issue, Shaun, but the PM is right. If Labor had remained in power, then we wouldn't have been able to afford even a third of the speculative, undesigned, unpurchased submarines that we don't have today.
This interview with Bobo Gargle is brought to you by Pablo's Tyre Palace. Sorry, Bobo, you were saying?
Oh, yes. One thing we're going to need, Shaun, when we get our new nuclear submarines, apart from someone who knows how to maintain them, is somewhere to put them. And that's why the Morrison-Joyce government, and I don't mean that pejoratively, is
establishing a second submarine base on our east coast.
A submarine base?
Yes, a base being a base on the coast. I think he meant to say boast.
All right, and I understand from this clip...
Of 19 potential sites, Defence has narrowed it down to 3, either in Brisbane, Newcastle or Port Kembla.
Depending on which is most marginal before the election.
All right, now, Malcolm Turnbull is apparently not a fan, is he?
I mean, really, this has descended into farce.
Has it?
No, I won't have that. It's ascended into farce.
Now, the ADF has copped some flack over the flood emergency response, hasn't it?
And unfairly so, Shaun. You can't expect the ADF to miraculously be everywhere at once.
Miraculously?
Yes.
Is that a word?
Absolutely.
Can you point to another occasion when that word has ever been used?
I can.
I mean, the ADF just can't miraculously get through things that you can't get through to get to a particular location.
My humblest apologies. And finally, Bobo, we have a video question from Anthony in New South Wales.
Why are people having to pitch in and privately hire helicopters when the ADF have access to those resources?
Well, that's a good question, Anthony. So that we get them used to the idea that should we become involved in a conflict, they will need to hire their own armoured tanks and submarines.
And what are the gap in our submarine capability before the arrival of the nuclear-powered ones? Any speculation about the possibility of leasing some in the interim? What if you can't lease any?
Well, then we lease.
No. We said we're not doing that anymore. No. No, it's been 10 years and we've just worked out it doesn't make any sense at all. Anyway, you were saying?
The Cracker!
Life is busy, and it can be hard to stay on top of everything that's happening. In fact, we can't do it. It's impossible. Sorry, but there's too much going on. Maybe try Sky News. Ready for some new adventures?
Why don't you fuck off back to the city?
Backroads is back.
You stinking ABC greenie.
On a journey to some of this country's most remote towns.
We all watch crime here anyway.
And to meet some of our most fascinating local characters.
Nothing to do here. Can't wait to get out of this shithole.
You just can't get stuff here. We can't get fast broadband, can't get a doctor, can't get a booster shot, can't get a COVID test.
Mice you can get. If we had a bloody mouse plague last year, now you can't get a hold of a single rat. Nah, it's shit house.
Sell off a bloody ABC. You're all just Labor stooges. You won't put that on TV, will you? Or if you do, you make me out to be some two-dimensional idiot by getting a really broad performance from the actor.
Partly new Backroads. 2 nights ago at 8 o'clock and on iView.
Now, retired Admiral Chris Barry, a former colleague of Viceroy Boy Sabobo Gargle, is a senior member of the Australian Security Leaders Climate Group, who have been highlighting the ways in which a worsening climate will destabilise global security. And he blames
a failure of leadership at the top of this country to deal with these issues. I mean, we're getting better leadership out of Brown Banducci from Woolworths than we are from the government.
Which does beg the question, what would Woolworths be like as a government? Gemma Peedy, leader of the opposition, Coles.
They would be an absolute disaster, Shaun. Brad Banducci is the most left-wing leader of a supermarket since Joseph Stalin had that IGA franchise in St Petersburg. Woolworths say they're the fresh food people, as if we at Coles are selling rotten, mouldy produce. It's just a scare campaign, Shaun. And what we know will happen under a Woolworths government is that home delivery times will blow out, shopping trolleys will lie around abandoned for months, special catalogues will be shoved in our letterboxes despite the no junk mail signs, and the cost of everyday items like Nivea Cellular Anti-Age Night Cream, now just $16.80 at Coles, save $11.20, will skyrocket.
Thanks very much, Gemma. And, of course, the way the polling's going, independent grocers may well end up with the balance of power. Well, Tony Abbott, was he our best Prime Minister ever? No. Well, Australia's biggest coal-fired power station, Eraring, is set to shut down 7 years ahead of time.
The plant's owner, Origin Energy, has blamed cheap renewables for making the economics unsustainable.
Right, so cheap renewable energy is the bad guy here.
But the Federal Energy Minister is warning of grid instability and higher power prices. OK, so cheap renewable energy leads to higher power prices. Well, bugger that. I want the cheaper, more expensive coal-fired power. Who's with me? According to outspoken National Senator without portfolio, Matt Canavan. That's him. Who in this clip is in, I think, the tool aisle at Bunnings. This will all get only worse under Labor.
Is absolutely absurd and is selling out this nation's sovereignty, and we should fight back against that, because it'll only get worse when they get into, if they ever get into power and have to do deals with the Greens as well.
Yeah, so national sovereignty is at stake. No, Sora, madam, we need to build more coal-fired power stations and the government needs to pay for them. Unlike the weather and foreigners, coal is dependable. Even Even when an explosion in one Queensland coal-fired plant caused mass outages last year, Matt reckoned it was because we had let our energy system become vulnerable so that one explosion was enough to take down the power for thousands of people. Build modern coal-fired power stations, tweeted Matt, so we can keep the lights on, exclamation mark. Matt Canavan's skincare consultant, Brett Campervan. So what's to stop more explosions taking out any new coal power stations we build?
Well, Shaun, the only way to guard against explosions is to decentralise our electricity generation infrastructure. The more coal-fired power stations we have around the network, the more secure our electricity will be.
Well, like having rooftop solar panels on every house.
Correct. And that's why Matt is advocating for a rooftop coal-fired power station scheme for all Australians. So that way, if there's an explosion in one of them, as there surely will be, there'll still be plenty of backup capacity in our suburbs.
At the very least, the explosion would provide some light.
Correct.
How would you get the coal to all those houses?
Oh, there'll be challenges, Shaun. Rome wasn't burnt in a day. Fortunately, most houses already have a gas connection, so they'll be able to run their rooftop coal plant on that until their street is hooked up to a national mine-to-the-curb coal delivery network. I already have 400 missed calls from Joel Fitzgibbon, so it's safe to say this proposal's got bipartisan support. Yep. Time to take my tablets.
Meanwhile, our Energy and Emissions Reduction Minister, Angus Taylor, has been having increasing trouble reconciling the competing interests of his two portfolios. He claims his government is technology agnostic, which means that he isn't sure technology exists because it can't be proved, but at the same time regularly attends a church where people dance around naked worshipping piles of burning coal. This cognitive dissonance has manifested itself recently in Angus decrying those opposing federal government investment in gas and oil exploration in the Beetaloo Basin as activists, boasting that Australia has kept its foot on the accelerator in terms of such exploration, and wagering that countries in Europe facing the energy privations of Russia's war in Ukraine wish they'd had a gas-fired recovery like we had. So, is taxpayer-funded investment into fossil fuel exploration and taxpayer-funded investment into machines that magic away their carbon emissions the best idea? Why not just spend the money once on stuff like windmills, solar panels, batteries and butt plugs for cattle? Psychic bridge across Angus Taylor's polarised agendas, dichotomy August.
Shaun, Labor have all these great plans to save the planet using good vibes or what have you, but where do they expect to get the money for all these wonderful toys?
The same place you are?
I'll tell you.
Okay.
The same place we are, out the back pockets of working families. But only we can deliver good, clean, dependable power at affordable prices, whereas Labor will deliver exactly the same thing, except when the wind isn't shining and the sun ain't blowing and the batteries ain't working. Good man.
Why wouldn't the batteries be working?
Beware the fiberglass pink Batman.
Yeah, but insulation bats and batteries are two completely different things, aren't they?
Let me explain it to you one more time.
Okay.
Australians want affordable power, no emissions, no lack of reliability, a cup of coffee and wheat toast.
You're investing in oil exploration.
Right.
You want to keep the prices down.
Now we understand each other.
Yet you won't cut the fuel excise to reduce the rising price of petrol.
Let me explain it again. We need the fuel excise to pay for the roads. The roads are being swept away in the floods. We can't use the money in the Emergency Response Fund because we're saving that for a rainy day, a day when another fresh hell we haven't planned for adequately, like, say, I don't know, national security, threatens to wipe us all out. Figures don't lie. Unless they're on a PDF coming out of Angus's office printer.
Thank you very much, Dichotomy August. Well, now coming up because Starstruck is on in a minute.
Another government MP crosses the floor. Australia Post defends controversial underarm delivery. And PM escapes questioning through humanitarian corridor.
Well, tune in next week when we look at the independents challenging moderate Liberal candidates following Liberal MP Dave Sharma's warning that
if it looks like a political party, if it acts like a political party, if it feels like a political party, I'd suggest it is a political party.
Mind you, given Dave's own election materials make no mention of the Liberal Party and uses the same colour as the independent candidate, it's also safe to say if it looks like an independent, acts like an independent and feels like an independent, it's probably just a Liberal candidate trying to convince you they've got nothing to do with the weight jobs they sit next to at the party room meetings and who've been dictating the aimless direction of this country for the last 8.5 years. Goodbye.
God, baby.